That's what 15 seconds of silence sounds like. I bet some of you thought, gee, I wonder if he's aware he started the hangout. Others might have thought, is his mic on? We're not always really comfortable with silence. I'm not talking about quiet time or meditation time. I'm talking about silence. And I'd like to share two brief stories with you this week. Two stories that happened to me years apart from one another, but were kind of joined together by the same principle. And I posted the trailer and then again on the event page. I posted a picture my wife took when she went to visit her aunts in Door County, Wisconsin, about 6 or 7 years ago. It's a picture of a bench that sits about 8 or 9 feet away from the Lake Michigan Bay. Now, I don't know too many people that would go sit there when it was about 10 below zero. But a few summers earlier, my wife and the kids and I traveled to visit her aunt and uncle. And her Uncle Bill had never left Door County in his entire life. It was the first and only time I'd met him. And after we chatted for a while and had some lunch and beverages, he kind of motioned to me and we walked down a hill to that bench. Bill had built that bench. He was a carpenter. He was an electrician. He was a plumber. He was a part-time farmer. But he built the bench and he motioned me to sit down. And when I started to talk again, he put his fingers up to his lips. And we sat there. The water came within 4 to 5 feet of our feet. The sun kind of glared through the trees that hung over the top of the bench. And we just sat there. And after a bit, I began to feel myself empty. Oh, not in a bad way. It was simply that everything inside of me, all that chatter that goes in the background I talked about last week, it all went away. And I sat there very serenely and very empty in a very good way. Never saw Uncle Bill again. I never went to sit in that bench. But the one thing that impressed me about it was that I learned to be silent. Because when I can be silent, especially in nature, then I can truly listen. Most of the time we put a filter on. That little voice in the back of our head says, listen to this. No, don't listen to that. Oh, that's a good thing. Oh, don't listen to them. But when we truly empty ourselves, when we're truly silent, that's when we can really hear that amazing symphony of creation. So that's my challenge to you this week, to take some time and be silent. Oh, I promise you it'll be a little uncomfortable. Oh, and I promise you that it's kind of like turning off a faulty water spigot. The first few times it just doesn't quite get it, but stick with it. Because suddenly you'll feel this absolute amazing drain that comes through you. Okay, I promised you two stories. And here's kind of one to end the podcast and start your week on. And I told you they kind of were attached together with one another, but they occurred 15 years apart. I happened to be in San Diego on business back in the early 90s and stayed over for the weekend. And so I went to a San Diego Padres baseball game. And sitting a few seats next to me was a gentleman of the Hare Krishna faith. I could tell by the way he was dressed, and there weren't a whole lot of people at this Saturday afternoon game, and we started talking with one another. And I said, excuse me, but I don't know a whole lot about what your faith belief is, and if you could tell me in one sentence, what would it be? And he kind of looked down at his feet and looked up at me a minute and smiled. And he said, where you are is where you're supposed to be right now. And that's when I had one of those aha moments, because that silence only shows me the now where I'm supposed to be. So for this week, forget about next week, next month, next year. Forget about your podcasts, your Google Hangouts, your affiliate events, your joint ventures that you're planning down the road. Live in the now, because where you are is where you're supposed to be right now. And silence teaches us that. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a really great week.